right, so can Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for Ohio governor, bring the Trump boom to Ohio? Vivek, thanks for coming back on. That's the big question. Can you bring the boom to Ohio, Vivek?
Absolutely, and at scale. And Larry, I think one of the keys to do it is, first of all, remember that Ohio is a great geographically blessed state. We've got 60% of North America's population within a single day's drive of central Ohio, where I'm sitting right now. That's great for a manufacturing boom, for distribution, but also with natural gas to our east. The problem that we have to solve is get over the culture across the country of red tape and overregulation. And I think now is a moment more than ever to really use deregulation, cutting red tape at scale to increase the supply of energy, to increase the supply of new home construction, to actually bring down auto insurance premiums and even other insurance premiums, home insurance premiums, through ending frivolous litigation, through common sense reforms. Those are time-tested principles. We know they work, Larry, but I want to bring them at a state level, not only here to Ohio, but as a model for our region and for the rest of the country, and that's what I'm going to do.
You know, the housing thing, Vivek, would be very, very important because there's a little bit of muddled thinking going on around the country. But if you can deregulate housing, open the door. I mean, we need to create more homes, and we need to create, you know, some of these new homes that are not that expensive.
And it's not that complicated. If you think about it, Larry, it's the laws of supply and demand. You want to bring down the cost of housing, cut the red tape that stops new home construction, including a lot of land use restrictions that get in the way. This should not be a partisan issue about left versus right. This is about up versus down for our economy. And I think these supply-side driven solutions, you want to bring down the cost of those electric bills, best way to do it is to actually produce more energy, which we're blessed with here in Ohio and in the United States of America. President Trump has done a great job at a federal level, but there is meaningful room now to tackle those issues of affordability, to tackle those rising or perceived to be rising costs. The way that we do it is increase the supply of what matters. That's how you get lower costs, higher wages, bigger paychecks. And part of that's also, Larry, through better education. One of the things we're going to need to address a lot of these long-run economic challenges is a skilled workforce that our schools are preparing our young people for. And that, too, is a responsibility for the states, because the federal government, rightfully, does not manage education. That's on the shoulders of governors. And what I want to do in Ohio is to set an example that the other states can actually aspire to.
Vivek, on the energy front, just to come back there, nuclear. Is there room for, I mean, Ohio's an oil and gas state, too, but nuclear, can you put that in there?
Absolutely. So natural gas is here and now, but nuclear is an important part of the future, especially when you see the boom of hyperscalers, the boom of really energy demand going up over the next 10 years. You know, back in the old Industrial Revolution, you took carbon atoms and you converted it to locomotion. Now it's about converting carbon atoms or even atomic energy into the production of intelligence. That is going to require far more energy production across the country. And I do think nuclear energy is going to be an important part of the solution mix of the future, Larry. It is, done correctly, a very safe, arguably even the safest form of energy production. But the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and a lot of historical federal obstacles and also state obstacles have gotten in the way. Thanks to advances in technology, we know how to do this safely, but now we need to actually step on the gas and get it done.
Can you be really cool? Last one, Vivek, get rid of the Ohio income tax. It's not that high. It's 3.5%. Just get rid of it. Scrap it. What the heck?
Well, what's really important is not only does that provide relief to Ohioans, they get to keep more of what they earn, it also allows us, Larry, to attract more business into the state. There are other states that have done it. People are looking to flee states like California that are going crazy directions with their taxation. I want to make Ohio the capital of positive capitalism, the capital of innovators actually moving here to create those high-paying jobs. And ultimately, that is the best defense against inflation for an individual, is to really create the conditions for increasing take-home pay. Take-home pay means pay after taxes. And if you take that income tax down to zero, that means you keep more of what you earn, but you also bring higher-paying jobs to that state. So it's a core part of my campaign, and it's a core part of leading this state, Larry.
Sounds like a winner. Sounds like a winner. Vivek Ramaswamy, sounds like a winner. Thanks ever so much. Good luck on the campaign trail.